Thank you for staying. Let's hit the ground running. Time now for us to get into the newspapers. And we have a few of them here with us this morning. I don't know, sometimes I feel the weather affects the number of papers we get. But the segment, before I introduce my guest, is always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And here's what they're telling you. They're saying that if you're a man, come and get yourself checked for free when it comes to prostate-related issues. If you're a woman, do you know your fertility status? If you don't, make tracks to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Come and get yourself checked out gratis for free. You will not pay anything. And you ought to reach out to them at any of their branches. Here's where you can locate them. Here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, there's Kronum Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's also Takrady Anaji State, that's Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanzo and Esiama and Zama. Their call lines are these two. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. The end to chronic disease. But just the start of the lots of matters that we have to discuss with you this morning. Joining me, Suleiman Brahma. He's Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Mr. Brahma, good morning.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for having me as usual.
Thank you. Today, our time is slightly limited. I want us to make the most of the time all the way till around 7:10. So let's cut incisively first off into the Cecilia Dapa situation. I just want your quick take on that before we get into other matters that have become topical as far as that conversation is concerned. So we've spoken about dollars being hoarded by certain people. We've spoken about where the economy has found itself. And now she's a politically exposed person, a PEP, with $1 million, 300,000 euros, and millions of CDs, as we've been told, somewhere in her rooms or somewhere in her vault. What do you make, Suleimana, of that situation? And should her resignation be enough? Some are saying the special prosecutor should get into it and all that. What's your thinking on the matter?
Well, thank you very much. It's a matter that is quite astonishing. But at the same time, people who watch our political space will tell you, well, this is something that is to be expected in terms of the quantum of looting that is happening within our system. And there are a lot of people who will tell you that, look, this is not unique. Almost every person in similar positions, it wouldn't be surprising that they have similar amounts of monies at home, because these are monies that sometimes the way they acquire them makes it difficult for them to put them in the banks. And therefore, where else would they put it but in their bedrooms and so on? So this development has perhaps given us an evidence of what a lot of people have always said, that people are keeping, ministers and other appointees are keeping monies that they've looted at home and so on and so forth. Certainly, it is a matter that would demand investigations. And I do expect, I would be surprised and very shocked if in the course of this week, we don't hear anything from the special prosecutor in terms of steps that are being taken to investigate this matter. Because certainly, this is a matter that borders on, matters relating to corruption. And the special prosecutor's mandate specifically relate to things like this. So obviously, resignation, who cares about resignation? And indeed, in this country, you begin to wonder whether people are serving themselves or they are serving the nation. And therefore, who really cares about her resignation? What for me is important is the investigations that must be conducted into circumstances surrounding how this huge monies that we are talking about got stuck in her house. And for me, what is also quite even more shocking is the statement from the president in terms of his acceptance of the resignation, where the president says that he is accepting the resignation with regrets, and concludes by saying that eventually her
integrity Yeah.
be fully established. And then when we say that the president is a clearing agent, he says he's not a clearing agent. Even before investigations are conducted, the president has already concluded that the minister is not guilty of anything.
But mind you, the minister would have had to reach out to Mr. President to, in discussing the tendering of a resignation. And maybe the story she told him is what he's bought into, for which reason he is convinced that she is innocent.
Well,
mind you, in our dispensation anyway, even if the matter goes to court or the special prosecutor gets into it, it is innocent until proven guilty.
Of course, but it is not for the president to say that.
Right.
For the president to say that, oh, look, in the end, your integrity will be established and so on. These are the things that make us all conclude that the president has become a clearing agent. And he continuously demonstrates that as far as his appointees are concerned, look, they are almost like saints. Nobody commits a crime. So
that Suleimana is in stark contrast to what happened, for example, with the Vicky Hammer situation. She merely said she was anticipating getting $1 million, and you saw the consequences. They were swift. In this instance, she had to resign. She wasn't even sacked. She had to resign. And but in terms of the consequences, so let me just add this, and in a minute we can wrap on this situation. Some have said, Suleimana, that her husband is an architect of long standing. He's been there doing this work for decades, that maybe that could be the source of the money. Some have suggested it could be gifts, but if they are gifts, of course, they should have gone through the proper systems for taxation to take place. Some have also said that, look, if you deposit your dollars, for example, foreign currency in the bank, there are severe limitations on how much you can withdraw. I think up to maybe 50,000 or thereabouts. And maybe someone wants to do something and they may need large sums of money. And you think, now, bank and I went and give me this. Oh, I can't give you this today. You have to go and come back. These are some of the circumstances that have come up. Don't you think they are valid points to be made in terms of the source of this wealth? By the way, I heard that a certain minister who lives somewhere in Accra, East Legon to be specific, also had his dollars burnt at some point, but that one never came out anyway. And no dear, as for what is happening out there, and I have some, but let's leave it there. What would be your reaction then for those positing these situations?
No, I think I've also heard a lot of those claims and propaganda and attempts to whitewash the situation, including the point that somebody says, oh, it could be donations, it could be funeral donations. She's lost 2 relatives in the course of the last 1 year or so, and so those monies would have been depleted as a result of the funeral celebrations that were held.
Right.
I mean, matters like this, yes, you would expect those who would want to always showcase the fact that they think Ghanaians cannot think, but in the end, it turns out that perhaps it is they who really cannot think. Look, there are people who may have hundreds of millions of dollars, who may be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. We know about business people who we are told are fabulously rich. I don't think that those people keep those dollars in their homes. To keep $1 million, 300,000 CDs, 300,000 euros, and as we are told, millions of Ghana CDs at home. It's something that is really cannot be explained by the gimmicks that are, going on. I think, as I said, I will be extremely shocked if I don't hear anything from the special prosecutor announcing that investigations have commenced into circumstances under which the monies were, acquired, whether from salaries or from the job of an architect, husband, or whatever it is. We need to know. And what is important is that investigations must be conducted into this.
Some have questioned the temerity to even take the matter to court, especially when this is the situation. But let's get into the papers. And in the next 14 minutes thereabouts, wrap. Newborns to receive Ghana card, NIA births and deaths, GHS, that is the Ghana Health Service, integrate database. I'm talking about the Daily Graphic newspaper. Galamsey on Black Volta. Minister warns of crackdown on culprits. Why don't he just crack down and stop all the warnings? We all know of the effect of Galamsey. We are now warning. National Service Allowance goes up. That's a positive. And on the back of where we find ourselves economically speaking, NLA procures 4 modern machines, and Graphic doesn't enjoy government subvention. Director of Finance tells PAC. So all is set for the issuance of national identification numbers, better known as Ghana card numbers, to newborn babies, the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has stated. This follows the successful integration of the databases of the Births and Deaths Registry, the National Identification Authority, and the Ghana Health Service. The Vice President said the first baby was issued with a national identification card last Friday as part of a system test run. You remember there was a promise made in terms of this, and now we're seeing some fruition. Dr. Bawumia said the government's ongoing digitalization agenda was ample testimony to its appreciation of artificial intelligence and a commitment to ensure the country was not left behind in the 4th industrial revolution. But when we talk about industrial revolutions, though, where exactly do we find ourselves? 1st, 2nd, 3rd? Are we in the 4th? Some would even say 5th. But then let's turn quickly to page 13, 16, and then I'll come to you. So the Graphic Communications Group Limited, the biggest state-owned media outlet, operates without any government subvention. The company's Director of Finance and Administration, Samuel Essel, has told the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. He said, although the government had 100% ownership of the 73-year-old company established in 1950, the company generated its own revenue to finance its operations. Quoting him, he says, Honorable Chairman, no, we don't enjoy any government subvention as we run everything from our own funds that we generate from operations. Now, that is a bit of an interesting, a curious development, because some have always felt that they were getting some subventions as a state entity, but it appears that is not the case. So 2 issues. Let me add this, Suleiman, and then you can wrap with them together. The Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, has assured Ghanaians that the government will go to any length to flush out illegal miners from the Black Volta and other rivers across the country to protect them from pollution. Consequently, he has urged the 6th Infantry Battalion of the Ghana Armed Forces and the Savannah Regional Security Council to deal ruthlessly with all persons engaged in illegal mining in the Black Volta. Now, there have been reports of escalating galamsey activities along the Black Volta River, particularly in areas such as Jama, Jugboy, Carpenter, and Bamboy in the Savannah region. Here we are again, Lands Minister. As usual, we will deal with the situation, threats and all of that. Yet, the things still they go on for there. And again, we're using the military. It's not worked in the past. I don't know why we keep going there. Suleimana, 3 issues for your consideration.
Well, first of all, the Ghana card for newborns, Ghana card numbers for newborns, I think it's a positive development, but it is not a matter that should be hyped as if it is a major accomplishment, as is being hyped. I can understand if that is political capital for someone, but as far as I'm concerned, as a nation, these are matters that should be taken as things that are normal. I mean, to say that we are issuing Ghana card numbers to newborns and that is what a major achievement, I don't think so. We tend to celebrate, as they say, mediocrity. It's a positive development, as I said, but this is not to be celebrated as a major accomplishment by an entity or by a government or by an individual. And that is what I would say to that. Because why? We started this birth and death registry maybe decades and decades ago. If we are turning that into basically giving Ghana card numbers, and of course, people, if you were born and you were, registered, you were registered with a number. And so I don't think that it is anything that one should want to hype as a major accomplishment, as perhaps others would want to do. The other thing about the illegal mining and the attempts to control it, especially on the Black Volta. Again, as you said, we are hearing about the announcement, the promises, deployment of the military, which hasn't worked in the past, and one wonders how it's going to work this time around. The most important thing for me, Ben, is for us to acknowledge that fighting galamsey is not an easy thing. And it is not easy because we are in a country where the youth don't have jobs to do. Look, if you in almost every single family in Ghana, you may have an extended family person who is involved in galamsey. and not maybe as an actor, as the operator, but basically as a way of engaging himself or herself in order to survive. So if we have a government that is really serious about dealing with the galamsey, it's about the conscious effort of creating jobs for the youth, so that there are opportunities for them to engage themselves in that. I don't think that it is because they just want to go into this dangerous business, sometimes collapse of mine pits and resulting in deaths and the use of very toxic chemicals and all of that. A lot of people are doing this because there are no alternatives for them. And so it is not about just simply saying that I'm going to drive them away. You are driving them away to where? To the streets. To do what? And then you have, appointees keeping millions of dollars in their homes and so on. So that is what I would advise the government. And that is what I would say to my brother, the minister, that it is not as a matter of simply saying we are driving them away with the military. They fear the military. The military will shoot. The military will scare them. Scare them for them to go where? What must they do to survive? That is the fundamental question. If over the last 3 years we had said, look, we are serious about creating jobs, building factories, and so on, so that thousands of youth can get jobs to do, we would see a lot of people moving away from the galamsey sites. But until we do that, people may be getting to the point where they say, look, the military can kill us, they can shoot us, because after all, if we live here, we are going home to starve and die. So as Nanado would say, all die be die. I'm not by this justifying galamsey, but I'm saying that we need to take appropriate steps to deal with the matter rather than, always using this, military scare tactics and so on and so forth. It is not going to work today. It's not going to work tomorrow until the job opportunities are created. Graphic not on subvention, I think it's understandable, and I didn't expect that, or I didn't have any inclination that graphic was under government subvention. But the difference is also there. There are a lot of things that, as we know, they say, advertise must be published in a widely circulated newspaper, and the default newspaper is Daily Graphic. There are a lot of government advertising that must necessarily go to Daily Graphic, and Daily Graphic is paid. I'm sure there are a number of media houses that, if they were to get similar opportunities, may even be able to be paying something to government rather than perhaps thinking about being on government subvention.
Right. Let's get into the Finder newspaper and the Daily Guide very quickly. The Finder says, and I will just gloss over the stories we've already looked at. Judge removes First Atlantic Bank from side chick lawsuit. I'm sure you followed. So First Atlantic Bank has been, asked to step aside, so to speak, legally speaking. And it's going to be a straight issue between the side chick and her sugar daddy. Akufo-Addo meets Pope Francis to strengthen ties with Vatican. There's also NLA plans sustained crackdown on 350 million Ghana cedi illegal lottery business. Ghana needs new business model to diversify agriculture. That's according to Dr. Efri Akoto. And then Ghana-Houston affirm alliance to boost tourism inflows and business linkages. Let's look at those stories very, very quickly. So what is Dr. Efri Akoto saying? He is saying that the new model should be driven by government structure, supply chain logistics and market access, support big data and technology for evidence-based decision-making, research and development, develop and strengthen both input and output market systems and human development. My only concern, Dr. Akoto, while you were in power, are you saying you couldn't have done this? Then let's go to page 9. And there it is. Akufo-Addo meets Pope Francis to strengthen ties with Vatican. And the president has paid a courtesy call on Pope Francis in Rome. The visit aimed at strengthening diplomatic relations between Ghana and the Vatican. The call on the Holy See formed part of the president's 4-day official visit to Italy as the West African nation renews the bonds of friendship between the two countries. And those are the two stories there. Let me add this one. So the Daily Guide newspaper, I can defeat Mahama. That's according to Vice President Baumia. The Cecilia Dapa story is there. And this one, important, we have to celebrate it. I remember those days, national service and how much we were earning. Government increases national service alawa to 715 cedis and 57 pesos. That is from 559 cedis and 4 pesos to 715 cedis and 57 pesos. A little shy of 200, about 160 Ghana cedis, but I'm sure it will do a lot, especially considering the economic times we are facing. Shariaite passes on as well. So the topical stories for you to reflect on, Dr. Akoto and what he's saying about agriculture. There's also the Pope meeting Akufo-Addo, our president, and the Alawa issue, NSS. Quick thoughts?
Well, I think the most critical point there is the Free Akoto claims or statements that he's made. Look, this is somebody who was in charge of our agri sector for the last 6.5 years, and it is one of the sectors that I would say was well resourced, and yet, as we speak today, our stocks are empty. And yet this man would want us to believe that he did a good job as our agri minister, and now pontificating around with policies that can help improve our agricultural sector. He was there for 6 years. Why didn't he implement some of these things that he's talking about with all the resources that were allocated to the agri ministry? We heard about planting for food and jobs with all manner of noise. At some point, he claimed that a bunch of plantain was 5 cedis and so on and so forth. Today, as I said, the stocks are empty. And I don't think that it is because the new minister hasn't done A or B. It is because he's a pretendant over, a sector that was not performing. And yet he wanted us to believe that it's a sector that really did well under him. I think it is better that we take all these things with a pinch of salt rather than believe that this is somebody with some great ideas for our agri sector, because he's been tried, tested, and he failed. And that is what I would say. Visit to Vatican. Well, it's always okay to maintain and strengthen diplomatic relations with, other countries. As we know, the Vatican is an entity by itself in terms of foreign relations. It's not part of the Italian government machinery per se. So it's not bad. But I say, what does it really bring? National service. I think that we are at a point where indeed what is happening is national service. Previously, people were doing national service, but the allowances that were paid somehow was enough to cushion them. And I'm talking about those days, not the 500 and 600 and so on. And now that it is 700, we are being told, oh, it's been increased. The reality is that if you have a national service person, sometimes we take national service people at our workplace. If you have a national service person, let's say, who stays at Abelemkwe or stays at Jowolo, let me just use even a relatively shorter distance, and has to commute to the office in East Legon, how much is the person's cost in terms of transport?
Right.
In the cost of the month. Then the person would take breakfast. How much will be breakfast? The person will have to take lunch. How much is lunch? The person will have to go back home. How much is that? And then the person will have to take dinner. How much would that be? So like
you're saying, it is clear it is service to the nation, service at your own cost to the nation, because even now that it has been increased, I mean, it's just a drop in the bucket in terms of the reality. That sum could easily be absorbed into transportation alone. Easily.
Exactly. So that's around 25 cedis a day. I mean, with the new increase, 700 and something, it translates to about 25 cedis a day. And we know that people are spending as much as 20 cedis on transport alone in a day. So how do we expect these people to really survive? And that is why I'm saying those who are able to do it are really doing national service. And perhaps the best place to do this national service this time around is maybe to have people posted to the rural communities where maybe they can walk to their work, and cost of living in terms of food is quite low, and all of that. And that's really where we also need persons who are qualified to do the national service. And maybe this could give us some reflections in terms of reforms that may be needed.
Okay.
Where exactly do we deploy these people?
Suleiman, I will not have time to reflect on this story, but I'll just read the headline and thank you for joining the conversation. The Ghanaian publisher says, rich hospital sheltering convict. I just had to bring you some details on that. The Greater Accra Regional Hospital and Ghana Prison Service are under pressure to investigate an unusual circumstance in which a convict has been receiving treatment at the Rich Hospital for almost 2 months, despite being sentenced to 15 years at the Insawam maximum prison. Managing Director of Renaissance Oil Limited, an unlicensed oil marketing company, David Atey, was found guilty on 23 counts of defrauding Missile Energy Company Limited of more than $6 million through deceptive means in 2018. He was handed a 15-year sentence by an Accra High Court, but strangely, it is said that he's been sheltering at the Rich Hospital for the past 2 months. What exactly is going on? I guess with time we'll find out. Suleiman Brahima, thank you so much for joining us this morning. All right, I think you are muted for the last bit. But as we go, a quick reminder that this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering free prostate screening, free fertility screening for women. If you're interested, and you should be, just reach out to them at any of their branches. Here in Accra at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronumabwehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanso and Siamansima. Their call lines 0244 867 068, 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But there's a lot to talk about in sports, especially with the photoshopping and the fake videos that some people have been putting out about Messi's first game. Yes, he scored the free kick, but a whole lot of pictures about the GOAT supposedly taking photos of him and all of that. Well, details in sports up next.